6:40. I think we could kick this off. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jeffrey DeRose. I'm the Business Development Manager at the CSI Tech Incubator. The CSI Tech Incubator is growing a tech hub on Staten Island focused on bringing technology education and entrepreneur resources and support to Staten Island's local community, as well as minority communities throughout New York City. We are proud to be a driving force in various diversity and local economic initiatives. And tonight we will be kicking off our full Tech Talk speaker series with Pierre, the founder of Fleeting. And Pierre, I'll let you introduce yourself and your company.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pierre Laguerre. I'm co-founder and CEO of Fleeting, a marketplace that gives shippers and trucking companies the availability to tap in to a pool of drivers that can operate their trucks 24/7 around the clock. Launched the company in July 2019. Definitely to date, we've raised a total of about over $1.9 million from investors. Company already pretty much over $1 million in runway. Just actually, solving a real huge pain point in the trucking industry. I myself been in trucking for 17 years. Started as a Class A driver, then become an owner operator and built a staffing agency to $2.5 million in revenue under 18 months in trucking, and also built a trucking company to $1.6 million in revenue in the first year. So having spent that time in trucking allows me the full, opportunity to understand the pain point on multiple levels, from the shipper side, from the driver side, and from the trucking company side. And this is what we decided to do, to launch Fleeting. So for me, a little bit more about me is that, I don't have a tech background. I don't have an Ivy League background. Like I said, my entire life I've been in trucking. So for me, I feel like I have a moral obligation and moral duty to change something in trucking. For as long as I've been in trucking myself, didn't have time for my families, always lying, saying I'll be home this day and be home that time, knowing damn well the dispatcher would not let me get home. And that also resulted in a divorce. So I know that's actually, affecting a lot of truckers out there as well. And also grew up in a marginalized community. And, I was brutally attacked from people that look like me as well. And the reason behind Fleeting is also, once again, is not to just build a tech company and be a multi-billion-dollar company, but it's also being able to go back to the communities myself that I came from and show those young men that, trucking took me from this community to be where I am today, and it could do it for them as well. So it's a pleasure to be here speaking with this audience. Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, that's amazing. That's amazing. We're glad to have you. And before we get this started, I would just like to let the crowd know that if you want to ask questions, feel free to ask your question in the chat, and I'll ask it at the appropriate time. Or you can just ask the questions towards the end. We will have a Q&A session after the talk. Someone's already asking a question. So Toss,
already got the title of this question ready, huh?
Yes. This is actually a good question. So we'll ask this question and then we're going to get into the talk. Tassi wants to know about the impact of driverless trucks and self-driving vehicles. Tassi, are you asking this about the effect of self-driving trucks on his company or just in general?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a general question from just like the VCs. That's something that they ask all the time. Like, hey, look, what happened with driverless trucks? What happened with autonomous? What's going to happen? So for me, the way I always explain it is that first and foremost, I think we some years away from that technology. Number one, we haven't figured it out for cars yet, let alone trucks, right? Number two, on a regulation standpoint, the insurance industry is still like, okay, well, who is going to insure this, driverless equipment? We're talking about 80,000 pounds of equipment that's going to be on a highway. And also, if you look at it from a safety standpoint, which we're not talking about yet, is, trucking can haul about 80,000 pounds of weight. And we live in a country where, security is always, at an all times high. You just don't know when somebody can load a trailer with explosive and actually hack it and drive it into a city just because it's robotic, driverless, and kind of ignited. So there's so many things that we have to think about when we talk about autonomous. But however, I do see certain things early on that can work, which is one thing I do believe in is something called a platooning model. What they will do is they will have probably one driver driving, and they'll probably have five trucks following with no drivers in it, right? And so it's like a via Bluetooth. But what end up happening is, we can see that being successful on a highway, being able to cover long distance load, right? But when we get into the last mile deliveries, it's gonna run into the challenge once again. For last mile autonomous trucks to drive into the inner cities is gonna be very challenging. So even with that, even if they was able to be successful with the platooning model, they're still gonna need a group of drivers to be available at all times at a ramp to get in these trucks once they come off the highway to go do the final mile deliveries and then bring them back up on the ramp to actually send them back on the highway again. So there's different levels of autonomy. And, you know, and once again, I try not to create no fears in truckers' heart and to kind of tell them, like, you know, a robot can possibly take, you know, their job sometime down the line. Now, the way I see technology being very aggressive is not to say that it won't happen. Eventually it will happen, but I think we're some years away. But there's also regulation. There's also a lot of safety components that people aren't thinking about once we hear autonomous trucks. So that's where we are for that.
Yeah, you definitely brought up some very valid points. And Tassi dropped in a link for us to check out. So I guess on your own time, you can check it out.
Froze up for a second.
Hey, Jeff, are you still with us? Oh, there, he's probably back. Jeff, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Maybe just kind of glitching a little bit, but I'm here. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, Pierre, you have such an amazing background. You accomplished so many amazing things. So maybe can you start us with just like the beginning of your journey? Like, you know, like how did you develop these skill sets? Like, what was your path to getting where you are today?
Oh man, it was a crazy path, man. I don't think my first initial idea wasn't to become an entrepreneur, man. Came here, born and raised in Haiti. Came here when I was 15 years old.
I got fed.
Yeah, came here, exactly like I said, man. Came here with the dream of really being a neurologist, man. I was just really from early on. I remember I used to kind of like get a beating from my mom from doing certain things, and I used to always, you know, try to reason with myself, like, I just got a pop for doing this. Why am I over here doing it again? So I used to say, is it me doing it, or is it my brain that's actually me driving me to go do these things? So from early on, I was really like, you know, amazed by the way the mind, the way we think. So that was my dream. And even when I was in Haiti, I wanted to go to Harvard. I wanted to be a neurologist. And unfortunately, when I came here, I would say that I landed on what we'll call the rotten side of the apple in New York City around that time. It was, you know, in Brooklyn in the 90s. And, you know, the norm was, it was rough around them times. I don't know if you guys remember around the 90s. Brooklyn was no joke. The norm was, you know, drug dealing.
Oh my gosh.
It was the worst era.
I have no idea.
What neighborhood did you grow up in Brooklyn?
Flatbush.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I just moved from Flatbush.
Oh man, and it's still somewhat horrible. And we in 2020. I would still tell people, like, don't sleep. Although it's been kind of like, you know, gentrified a little bit, I would still tell people, like, still be careful because it's still Flatbush.
Yeah, for sure. So that's
yeah, man. From there, that was the norm for me. You know, seeing, you know, drug dealing, gang banging, and, you know, didn't want to become a statistic myself. Didn't want to become part of that. You know, didn't want to become a product of that environment. So even when I was there, I was always trying to find a way to escape. So I went from dreaming of being a doctor to dreaming, okay, well, how the hell do I stay alive here? Like, am I even gonna live long enough to graduate school to become a doctor? I did go to college to study electrical engineering. And, you know, but I was always, you know, debating with myself and thinking about, you know, maybe I could just, you know, get a CDL and become a truck driver and just, you know, escape this place. Went into college. When we came here, it was my mom and my 4 other sisters. My dad wasn't around, so financially, you know, I had to drop out of school to, you know, get my CDL to become a trucker because my mom couldn't do it. I had to become a man very early. So trucking was the path. And from there, started working at XPO Logistics. As we know, XPO right now is one of the largest trucking company there is right now. And I worked with them for about 3 years, then left. Then I went to work for a company called Performance Food Group. We started doing food deliveries to local restaurants, schools, hospitals. And what was interesting about that is I started doing food deliveries in the same college that I was going to, New York City Tech, downtown Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And I was really ashamed about it, right? Because I didn't want nobody to see me. I didn't want my professor to see me. So I used to always try to run and rush when I'm doing deliveries in that school. And one day, literally, like, I ran into my professor, and he was like, my math professor too. He said, Pierre, is that you, man? I was like, yeah. He's like, what's the matter? Like, why are you hiding? Like, why you don't want to talk to nobody? I said, well, you know, I dropped out of school to become a truck driver, so I didn't want nobody in here that thought I was a loser. He was like, a loser? He said, how much are you making a year? And at the time, I was making about $94K a year. He's like, man, listen. He said, look, half of these kids is going to graduate, is not gonna see 94K. So it's like, I want you to own it, be proudful, and be the best trucker you can be, man. And that little message, man, really, believe it or not, it really resonated with me. And as me being a driver, I was always into like, trading stocks, financial literacy, and always trying to find a way to build financial wealth. And I was trading stocks from, I think that year with Solar City Corp, I did about $47,000 in like 6 months and purchased my first truck and became an owner operator. And from there, really left Brooklyn, moved to the suburban in Jersey, got married, really doing well for myself. When I was an owner operator, it was a big difference. Now, when you were a truck driver, you just work for a company. They just give you the paperwork. You get the job done, you go home. When you were an owner operator, you own the truck. It comes with a different set of headache, right? You got to worry about insurance. You got to deal with brokers. You have to deal with shippers. You have to deal with fuel. You have to deal with toll. So it's pretty much running your own business. And don't mind you, I have no business background. And really starting to learn a lot, being an owner operator, what was working, what didn't work. So I ended up parking my truck up, went and took a course at Wagner College for supply chain logistics, right? It was about a 3-month course that I took. And it was very informative. But my takeaway from it was it showed me trucking on a much macro level, but I was much more eager to know more about trucking on a macro level, like, day-to-day operation. So I went again and took a course to become a freight broker. Now, as me being an owner operator on my own truck, like I said, it's like going to war with brokers at all times, like always trying to find the good loads. How do I get the maximum, pay for the load? And as you know, if we don't understand what brokers is, brokers are pretty much a middleman that's between a shipper and a trucking company. So they're the one that negotiate the rate with the shipper, and then they renegotiate that rate to a trucking company or a truck driver. So for me, it was always a battle with them. So I parked up my truck again and went and took a course to become a freight broker. Now, it was inside that freight broker course, I truly realized that, some brokers make money on truckers' ignorance, right? Truckers really don't understand unit economics. We don't understand how to build relationships with shippers. We really don't understand how to run a tight operation. So we depend heavily on brokers for them to do it for us. So I said, you know what, hell with this. No more I'm moving any loads where a broker's gonna make millions of dollars off of me and I'm not making nothing. Before I even started anything, I had got into a car accident. We talking about 2015. I had got into a car accident. And don't mind you, when I owned my truck, I was doing financially well for myself. Got into the accident, man, lost everything, right?
Wow.
Found myself right back again in Brooklyn. I ran through my savings in about 4 months. My trucks got repoed about 7 months later. Right back in Brooklyn, going through a divorce. Things really really got bad. And that year, 2015, that's 2014. And I remember this little book, man, that I read called What the CEO Wants You to Know. And once again, that book changed my life because from that book, I learned the key takeaway for me was volume and profit margin. So now I'm back in that same shitty neighborhood. Now I'm in Crown Heights, trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? My daughter's 5. I don't have a job. I can't go back to work until next year because of the accident. So I remember walking around everywhere in New York, and I was seeing the glass from the restaurants, the beauty salons, the bars. And I was saying to myself, I said, what if I get 100 of these stores to pay me $10 per glass? I said, I could make $1,000 a week. Because after I read the book, I was just trying to find a business, to get something to get on my feet. And I really couldn't come up with nothing. I was thinking about selling, the buttons on your shirt. I was thinking about going to China to buy zippers to sell them at, volume. I just couldn't come up with nothing. But those glass, I was like, okay, well, who the hell is cleaning those glass? I said, I could get 100 customers. I said, I could make $1,000 a week. So I went and told a friend about it. I said, hey, look, man, I'm thinking about starting this window cleaning business. And he laughed. He was like, man, people are going to think you a crackhead. I said, why? I said, why you say that? He was like, well, you came here from Haiti. You got your CDL. You got a truck. You started driving BMWs. You're doing well for yourself. You got hurt. Now you're back over here with no cars. Now you're walking everywhere talking about you cleaning windows. He's like, yeah, people are definitely going to think you was smoking crack with that money that you was doing with trucking. I was like, damn, you know what? That is true. But I said, you know what? I said, right now, I already look like a crackhead. So I said, I'd rather look like a crackhead with some money than instead of looking like a crackhead with no money. I said, are you going to do it with me? Yes or no? He said, okay, well, if you could get 50 stores, I'm in. So I woke up the next morning, man, I solicited the entire Brooklyn. Like I told you, I was knocking on every store, every restaurant, every barbershop. Hi, my name is Pierre. I have a service that specializes in glass cleaning. I'll do it for X, Y, and Z. That same day, I had 72 stores agree for me to clean their glass. went home, borrowed $80 from my little sister, went to Home Depot, got me some bucket, got me some scrunchie and some towels, and really started cleaning windows the following day, like me and my friends. And now when we was cleaning windows, again, I was ashamed about it. It was 90 degrees outside. I have a hoodie on with a hat, with a mask on, and with nobody to see me. But once you started making money, I was like, wait, you know what? Maybe I could turn this into $1 million business. I don't have to go back to trucking. This is a lot easier. And we really started growing. Before you know it, we had all the Metro PCS stores in Brooklyn, the 7-Eleven. In 3 months, we did $62,000 cleaning glass. Wow. Right? So now
I'm in the wrong business.
I know, right? So I said, I'm not going back to trucking. I'm gonna build this, a little higher. I was lying to myself, man. The minute I got that money in my hand, trucking was calling me again. So I launched a staffing agency December 2015 in trucking, and that staffing agency did about $2.5 million in revenue in 18 months. And then took that money and then started a trucking company. Started with 3 trucks and grew that business to about 16 trucks in 6 months, and also had about an additional 10 owner operators, and also did $1.6 million in revenue in the first year in that company. But what was interesting was I was running those 2 companies simultaneously by myself. Really didn't have no help, couldn't delegate. I was the driver, the supervisor, the salesman. I have a staffing agency with 64 drivers, and I have a trucking company with 26 trucks that I'm managing every day. You could just imagine the type of burnout that I was going through. But then financially, I was really doing well for myself. Then once again, left Brooklyn again, just being able to do my things. And I had my 3rd son. I had a son that was born in 2016, my boy Ramel. And then I had another one that was born in 2017. Now, the one that was born in 2017, he was born with Down syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. And doctors told us that, he would have to go through multiple heart surgery because he wasn't born with a bridge in his heart. He was born with a hole in his heart. And that started really affecting my world again. My numbers starting to fall apart. I really couldn't keep it together. I don't know if anyone of you have kids, have children. At that time, like I said, I didn't care about no trucks. I didn't care about no drivers. All I cared was about, my son staying alive. And my trucks, like I said, my business really started falling apart. But through that time, I remember, I also want to sound super spiritual with y'all, man. I'm a firm believer in God. And I think God was really calling me when I was going through all that stress. He was talking to me. He was like, son, turn your face to me. I got you. Don't stress. And here I am. I'm like, look, man, I got bills to pay. I got trucks to run. I'll get back to you. So I kind of felt like I was always putting God on hold. And my son went into his 2nd surgery in May 2018. While he was in that surgery, my mom came in town to visit. And I stopped at this restaurant, man, to get some food for my mother. I was brutally attacked from an attempt carjacking and robbery, man, and had my skull cracked open, 67 staples in my head. My forehead is not real. I have a titanium plate in my forehead.
Oh my God.
And kind of everything plateaued, man. Everything hit rock bottom again. And now I'm in a hospital fighting for my life. I'm in Kings County, and my son is in downstate across the street from Kings County. We both fighting for our lives. And it was through that moment again, man, I think I had a lot of growing up happen for me through that pain, because when I got hurt, to be honest with you, I was in so much pain. I wanted to hurt somebody. I wanted to retaliate. And I think it was also that pain that made me realize it's okay, this is the problem with us. This is me speaking to myself as a young Black man and say, this is the problem with us. Too often, we can be too reactive. Somebody kill your dog, you kill your cat, we have to retaliate. And I said, look, I could go out there, get a gun and hurt those brothers. And I said, what does that do? All I'm doing is perpetrating that same vicious cycle, right? I go and hurt them. Now I run the risk of, doing 25 years in life, my 3 children running the risk without, having a dad. So I said, no, I can't react that way. Mm-hmm. But I said, you know what? I remember seeing how hard my son also, how he was fighting at 3 months old. And I said to myself, God, if this kid can fight at 4 months old, there's no way I'm giving up. I said, get me at this hospital alive. I will build a team. I will attack to build a sustainable, successful company and be able to go back to my community and teach those men how to become truckers, because that was one thing that I was puzzled. I'm like, if that night those brothers would have asked me, hey, man, what do you do for a living? I would have told them, hey, yo, man, I run a trucking company. I could teach you how to become truck drivers and even teach you how to become an entrepreneur in trucking, which I've done plenty of times. And unfortunately, the situation didn't go that way. So I said, you know what? If I get out this hospital, I'm gonna build this company and be able to go back to those communities and help those young men. And I came out the hospital 12 days later, man, and hit the ground running and pitching fleeting. You know, it was just an idea on a napkin. Didn't have no tech experience, no fundraising experience. Just kind of hit the ground running. Just going to pitch competition, dealing with the no's, dealing with the you don't have a team, you don't have tech, it's not gonna work, nobody's gonna use it. And my injury happened in May 2018. In November that year, we got accepted by Quick Capital Accelerator. They invested $250,000 in a company at a $3.75 million valuation. And that kind of gave us, some capital, that kind of gave us some fuel. Really met my early co-founder, Paul, our COO. Paul was really, really very hands-on from the beginning. He loved the idea. And while in the Accelerator, we started adding on more team. Then we launched the MVP in July of that year. We went from making about $2,000 a month to actually, growing with a 20% month-over-month growth, doing over $170,000 a month in revenue within that year. And it's just from there. And I think there was another pitch competition with Chameleonaire for $100,000 that I've won. And that also came with the opportunity to launch on Republic. And that's another story. So we decided to launch on Republic because we understand, I already knew the challenges, what it was like raising venture capital, like I said, but I was still able to manage almost to raise $1 million.
But before you go into Republic, right, I don't think the crowd knows. So can we just talk about what is Republic and what is crowdfunding? So just people get a good scope. You heard me?
I'm sorry, you talking to me or?
Oh yeah, I'm talking to you. I was like, if you could just tell us like who is Republic and what is crowdfunding? I mean, I know what it is, but just for the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely, for the crowd. Oh yeah, so Republic is a crowdfunding that allow regular individuals the ability to invest in startup companies, right? So too often, especially minorities, we don't have access, we don't have opportunities to invest in those early tech companies. We only know about them when those companies go IPO, and by then it's really too late. So what Republic does, it gives you the opportunity to invest in a company while a company is private prior to going public. But sometimes in order for you to be an investor, you have to be an accredited investor. You have to have a certain amount of net worth. You have to have a certain amount of pretty much asset owned to be able to be an accredited investor. But not too many people sometimes are afforded the opportunity to be an accredited investor. So what Republic does, it allows the regular individual, the average man or woman, to be an investor in any early companies where you can invest $100 up to $1,000 into that company prior to them going public. So that's what Republic was, and that's what we use as well to successfully raise a $1.7 million round on their platform.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So before we get into the fundraising, maybe we want to go into the tech piece, right? Because you built this tech product with no experience, no tech background. How were you able to pull that off? What was that journey like for you, just, building a product?
Oh man, building a product, I think that's still a journey. I'm still getting my butt kicked on it every day. Understanding, it's not an easy task, to build tech because there's a lot that goes into it, like, especially a tech and marketplace as well. You have to worry about the supply, you have to worry about the demand, just like this all the time. The chicken and the egg situation, right? Which one comes first? Is it the chicken or the egg? And you have to be able to find both, and both of them have to be able to be willing to meet each other at that line in order for you to have a business. So building tech is very challenging. And for me, I think one thing that really helped me was the fact that I was very transparent about what I know and what I didn't know. So I will go to pitch competition and be very open and say, hey, look, I don't have a tech lead. I don't have a CTO. So if anyone knows a CTO or any company, like, any engineers that I was willing to join, please make some intro. Although that came with a lot of bad engineers as well from the early beginning. But I think that really helped. It really kind of like, allowed me to connect with the right parties. I was able to make the right introduction to bring the right team tech lead to be able to kind of help take what's in my head and put it on a board and actually to build it out. That was one of the most challenging part. But I think, the engineers that we've had, they've been very supportive. They understand what it is that we're trying to build. They have some kind of understanding of the industry as well. So I think that's what makes the process a lot more easier as far as building the product.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Quake Capital, right? You entering the Accelerator program, they took you in before product or after you had your product built?
Before product. I didn't have no product. I didn't have no revenue. So pretty much they took you the idea on a napkin.
Wow. I know the people at Quake also, and I didn't know that they take people with just an idea. That's interesting.
Yeah. But I think also for them, I think it wasn't just the fact that I just, somebody with an idea, but I think also they looked at the fact that I've already built two successful companies in trucking up to $5 million in revenues under 3 years. So that kind of like really give them the confidence that, okay, well, you know what, let's just give this guy a shot. And now I don't think they regret giving the shot to me now.
No, that's true. You know what? You bring up a good point, right? Because you are an entrepreneur with pedigree. I think when you have that track record, when you have a track record of success, a track record of really building a business, growing sales, growing a team, even though once again you had just an idea, they can say, hey, this person has successfully done things, and he's worth the investment. So that's good, and kudos to you. So let's maybe talk a little bit more about your fundraising journey before you went to the equity crowdfunding platform. Were you approaching VCs, or did you maybe just skip over that part?
Oh yeah, I spoke to a lot of VCs. I mean, outside of the 1 million on Republic, the other 800K that we raised that from VC and angels as well. So that was the process, man. It's a brutal process. Fundraising can be very, it's a distraction. Like I said, it takes away your confidence a lot of time, and it always takes away from your business as well, because in order to successfully fundraise, like, it has to become your full-time thing. Like, you can't fundraise and actually trying to build a business at the same time. It doesn't happen. You have to be fully dedicated on fundraising and make sure that you have a hell of a team that can manage operation while you're fundraising. And thank God for us. I think, without my team, I don't think I'll be able to achieve the amount of success that we've had, because they've been a great support. That allowed me to really focus on fundraising and really speak to a lot of investors. I mean, I pitch a lot of investors, a lot. To raise almost $2 million, I think I pitched over 100 investors.
Yeah.
Pierre, where did your team come from? Like, where did all of them come from? What genre?
Well, my team is pretty diverse. A lot of them are from New York, but I have Jordan. Jordan is from New York as well. Jordan is Jewish. Paul is from Texas. Paul is white and Mexican. We have Mina. Mina's Egyptian. We have our chief of staff, Maisa. She's also Pakistani and Jewish. We have Star, headboard, and she's African American. So we have a pretty diverse team.
Where did they basically come from? Like, how did you meet them? How did you run into them?
So going to pitch competition early on, that's how I was able to meet the team. Networking events really was the way to build a team. And actually, once again, being very transparent about what I know. I didn't come off as somebody that know it all, and always being transparent and say, hey, look, this is what I know, this is what I'm good at. And that was allowed me to really bring some great people around the team that was truly genuine about really helping us solving what we were building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question. That is important to know. So, I know in our conversations, you talk about, the importance of knowing your value as a Black entrepreneur, and especially when you're going in and negotiating with VCs. Can you talk a bit about that? I think that's a topic you're pretty passionate about, just knowing your value and owning your value.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think that's something that, all entrepreneurs should understand and be equipped with, once again, whether you're Black, white, female, or Hispanic, whatever it is, I think you should also be able to have the confidence of knowing that, number one, you're the captain of the ship, right? You're the master of your own destiny. You know what it is that you want to build. You know what it is that you're passionate about. Don't let somebody, because they're writing a check or because they come from a background with a, higher social status than you or financial status than you, don't let that person deter you from building that dream of yours, to build what it is that you want to build. Because too often we feel like we're a charity case. It's like we feel like we're just going around asking VCs like, hey, look at my beautiful baby. Do you want to invest in it? And, constantly telling you like, man, get this ugly baby out of here, right? So, but we want people to be confident of knowing like, hey, look, I'm building something tangible here. Like, I have what it takes to build a multi-billion-dollar company just like any other founders. If I have the right resources, if I have the right support around me, we all can be successful. So I think it's very important that we understand those powers when we speak to VCs, not look at ourselves as a charity case, but we should look at ourselves as an equal partner that we bring in value to the table by willing to go out there and sacrifice ourselves in building these companies. Because once again, not everyone can say, hey, look, I'm going to be a founder. I'm going to build this company. The minute you say you're going to be this entrepreneur, you're going to build this, all hell break loose. You're going to face so many challenges. So don't let one of those challenges be in the way. Don't let them be a stopping stone. You should really find a way to use VCs as your stepping stone. And instead of letting them feel like you're inferior and, you don't have the confidence that you need to negotiate your terms that you think you truly deserve. So I think that's one thing with minority founders, once again, we find ourselves in that box of, we kind of feel like a charity case. And once again, like even if you hear what, oh, we're doing this for minority founders, we're doing this program for minority, it's like, okay, why does everyone want to create a new water fountain just for minority founders? Why shouldn't we be just part of the same water fountain? So that, again, that mentality, we all have to get out of it that, minority founders or underrepresented founders. No, we're not underrepresented. We're not minorities. We are the majority when you really think about it. Because once again, not everyone wake up every day and say, I'm going to build a business or I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur. The minute you do that alone, that's powerful. And you should hold on to that. And don't let no VC, I don't care what billions of dollar check they've written before, what they've done before. This is your path. This is your journey. And you need to own it.
Yeah, I love that mentality, and not just VCs, just anybody, right? I think
Everybody.
anytime you're going on a venture, a new business, a new organization, whatever, new career, you're going to have doubters, you're going to have haters, you're going to have your family telling you like, hey, just go be a doctor. As a fellow Haitian, my parents wanted me to go be a lawyer or a politician or something, being an entrepreneur, just like it didn't make sense to them at all.
Absolutely. They don't believe in that, especially if you're not a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, you're a loser. You don't even want to know the story when I told my mother I was going to drive trucks. She almost lost it. Almost chopped my head off.
I could only imagine, but I'm sure she loves you so much right now for all the things that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's real. So just diving deeper into that topic, did you find yourself sometimes being in these negotiations with the VCs and maybe they're like overlooking you, and did you sometimes maybe feel defeated, or did you always like have this confidence in yourself?
No, absolutely. There's times that I feel, defeated. Like, as much as I talk about like having that confidence is not something that is, you just naturally that just come over. The confidence I'm talking about is like even in the spite of all the no's, you have to be able to get up and keep your head high and be able to keep pushing. But no, there's a lot of times I felt wounded and, felt like deeply cut and just like, oh my God, what do I do? Like I've even had VCs that ask, if I had a criminal background, like in a sense, these are the things that I face. Like, and once again, when you're speaking to 10 VCs per day and none of them is biting and just saying no, and they're not only questioning your ability as an individual, but also questioning like, okay, well, yeah, this is a great idea, but are you the right person to actually build this? Are you the right person to actually execute that? So that is something that really, it really didn't resonate well with me, because once again, that kind of affect my confidence as a founder. And once again, thank God for having a good team and being able to kind of like truly understand my market myself and understand what it is that we build. So I was always able to kind of tie it back to what I was building. So whenever I would feel defeated or a VC or I wouldn't get a term that I wanted, I would always kind of like tie it back to the pain point, the problem that I'm solving, how I was affected by this problem, and how there's other millions of other drivers facing that same problem. So I kind of always go back to that to kind of gain back my confidence and say, you know what, let's go back again. Just like they say, every day's fishing day, but every day's not catching day. So it's just a numbers game. It's just being able to go out there and put your best foot forward. And once again, it's just be confident again and do it again the next day.
Yeah. You bring up another good point too, right? About it being a numbers game. I come from a very strong sales background. So, I know sometimes, you got to go through 500 calls, 800 calls to get one yes. So when I started my latest business, putting in all that groundwork just to get a few yeses, I guess I had the capacity to understand that. Was that a big challenge for you? I find that's a really big challenge for early stage entrepreneurs, just dealing with rejection and just not understanding. Like I do events, right? When I do my events will get promoted to 15,000, 20,000 people just to sell 100 tickets, And sometimes people just don't realize, like when you're capturing 2% or 3% or 5% of sales, that's just the game. Was that something that you had to struggle with both on the sales end and even the VC end?
Yes, absolutely. That's something that I had to really, really adapt to. And also that's the reason why I want to tell founders is like, although we could talk about the disadvantage that, minority founders find themselves in. But once again, it's like, don't get stuck in that mindset, because it's an ugly mindset. It's an ugly place to live, because the minute you get your first no, you're going to start blaming yourself. You're going to be like, oh, maybe it's because I'm Black. Because what's end up happening, you fall into that victim mentality. And that's one place you don't want to live as a founder. Once again, it's very dark there. So that's what we'll call the side road. So don't get caught up and end up on the side road and start feeling, sorry for yourself and start questioning who you are. So that's why I'm very adamant on telling founders, like, you know, to really truly own their powers. But yeah, you're right. I absolutely dealt with that very early, like, you know, understanding like, okay, well, if I'm looking to raise, you know, 100K or 500K, you know, how many VCs do I need to speak with? And what is the minimum check size that I'm looking for that can possibly help me close this round really fast? And once I understood, okay, if my check size is going to be minimum 50K, then I said, okay, cool. I need at least 10 VCs that's going to move fast, that's going to be able to help me close that round. So at 10 VCs, like we say in the numbers game, right? In order for me to close 10 VCs, I probably have to speak to 100 VCs, right? To probably get a 10 yes. Or maybe I have to speak to 150 to get 10 yes. So once I understood that, it was like much more where it's like where I started pushing the VCs to say no, believe it or not, because they will drag around, they will waste your time. So for me, it was just much more like, okay, hey, look, how do I get this person to say no? Because the quicker you say no, the better it is for me that I can move on to the next investor. So I became a little annoying too. Like, hey, look, we closing at this time. Do you want to participate or not? Do you want to come into, like, once again, force their hand? Because once again, if you don't do that, they will drag their feet. Because remember, the VCs themselves, they're looking for signals, right? They're looking for the next investor to come in for them to say, okay, well, I'm coming in. Oh, Jeff, you coming in? You put 100,000? Well, if Jeff is putting 100,000, Jeff is a smart investor. That means Jeff really sees something valuable into this company. So let me go ahead and put my money into it. So it's like you have all these VCs, they all play the sideline, just waiting for that signal. So that signal is what we'll call the lead. How do you get that lead investor? So I think for me it was always kind of find a way to create, how do I get the lead fast? How do I get somebody that can make the decision a lot faster? And how do I build, you know, a pool of investors where I can have options? And I think another thing that I did pretty well was intros. Like even the investors that passed, I said, hey, look, I understand you pass it now because I might be too early for you. But hey, do you have any investors in your network that might have an appetite for our stage? If you do, please connect us and make an intro. So that way I was always building the investor list, even on the investors that passed, and was able to really close the round successfully.
Okay, yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Before
So
we get to
Pierre, where were you finding these investors? Were you directing your investors directly from your business, or you were just meeting different investors at different, how are you finding these investors?
Yes.
You're talking about 150 investors you said you spoke to. Were you on a website of investors or what?
No, it was all intros, right? Because it's very hard to get in front of investors, right? And that's another thing that, you know, make it hard for minority founders to raise capital, because investors have this barrier where somebody in their network had to make an introduction for them to take a call to even, you know, talk about your business. And also, you know, you have to have a pitch deck. Pitch deck is the number one part of, you know, having an investor meeting. The pitch deck is what talks about you and your business, what it is that you're trying to build prior to the investors taking a call. So one thing I did early on, I invested in a real good pitch deck, and we invested in really kind of finding, you know, ways, creative ways to send our pitch deck to investors and say, hey, look, this is our company. Do you want to take a call? So by investors seeing our company, they've seen the pitch deck, and they also see the opportunities. Then a lot of investors was more like really popped in, is really willing to take the call and get on the phone with me. Then also, once again, going to a lot of pitch competition, meeting a lot of, you know, individuals, a lot of tech exec as well. I was always asking for intros, and I think that's how I was able to build a network of investors. Always asking for an introduction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question. Great question. Before we get into Q&A, I maybe wanted to just ask you, maybe what are maybe like your top 5 or top 10 things that people should be doing or thinking about when they're going to raise? What are some of those like important things that you maybe think that outside of the pitch deck, right? We know you got to have a pitch deck. We know you got to have a solid pitch when you're actually speaking about your company. Outside of those two things, what are some of like, you know, your top things that entrepreneurs should be doing or thinking about when he or she is going to pitch or raise?
Have a team.
Okay.
That's very important. Have a team that can really, you know, hold the machine. If you already have something running and you have some traction, once again, fundraising is going to be very distracted. It's going to take a lot of your time. It's going to take a lot of your energy. It's going to be very hard for you to actually do fundraising and actually still be in day-to-day operations. So having a team that can really maintain operation while you're out there focused on fundraising is very important. Your story, learn, you know, how to raise, you know, by storytelling, understanding how to paint a picture. Because we all understand that, you know, we're not raising venture capital for today, right? We're raising capital for 5 years, 7 years for what the company can be like. So I think it's important that we get into the understanding, how do we sell the future into that investor? How do we wrap up that story around what we were building? How do we wrap the solution? And also making sure that we show that we're the best person to actually solve that problem, because nothing is new under the sun, right? The reality is you might be pitching this idea. Well, guess what? There might be 15 other 20 founders that's probably pitching that same idea to that same investor. The investor want to know who they're going to take a bet on. You understand? Which team am I going to put my money on? I'm seeing 20 deals about the same thing. So it's just about, make sure you have a right team, make sure you have the ability to execute, make sure you're able to move fast, and make sure you're able to really tie your story around your solution, around who you are, and, bring that connection home to the investors. That will kind of really make your fundraising process a lot more easier, or I would say a lot more efficient.
That's good. That's good. That's definitely some good advice. And any advice around networking? I mean, I obviously know these things, but just for the crowd, any tips for networking with investors? Any channels that you would go through to find investors?
Channels, and once again, is by knowing one investor, that one investor can build you a pipeline of 100 investors. Just one investor alone, because he's gonna make an intro to one investor, and that one investor is gonna know somebody else to make an intro. It's like it's a domino effect, right? But just being able, but the thing is, as founders, is it's not just any investors that we want to be connected with, right? So we have to understand the different stages of investors and understand the stage that we are in our business to who we can talk to, because you end up, spending a lot of time. You can't be in the seed stage and asking for entry with Series A's investors. You understand? You're never gonna raise no money. So I think understanding where you are at, understand where you are and the size of your round, and what type of investors usually invest in that round, and really start, networking and start asking people like, hey, look, do you know any investors that make seed stage investment? If you do, please make an intro. One thing I've learned in the tech ecosystem is that everyone is really like out there really trying to help everyone succeed. Like, if it's me, other founders done it for me, other people in the tech space have done it for me. If you come very honest, very open, and willing to take advice and learn from them, a lot of people will open up their network and make a lot of introductions to you and the people that you need to be connected with.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely true. Yes, so getting out there and networking, and maybe I'll just give a few tips. I've built up a nice network of investors myself. Talitha, you asked a good question. I would say one thing you can start with is, to add on to what Pierre said, is actually looking up VC organizations. Like there's the New York Venture Capital Association. There's Alternative Investment Club of New York. I'm just trying to think who else I'm connected to. There's like Quake Capital. There's like all kind of accelerator programs, Entrepreneur Roundtable, even our incubator, Y Combinator, even our incubator, we're building up our VC network. So that's a good place to start with, organizations. Hopping on Eventbrite and Meetup. You could go on Eventbrite and Meetup and find events that VCs are attending, That's something that I used to do. I literally just go on there and see what events are going to have VCs. I found that demo days are the events where VCs turn out the most, right? Because that's where VCs are going to go to find deals. If you go to events where VCs are speaking, all you're going to find is entrepreneurs, because everyone is just trying to meet a VC. So I would say go to the demo days. Don't go to go to the speaking engagement with the VC. It's always good to hear from that. But if you really want to go into a room to network with investors, go to a demo day. I'm trying to think. LinkedIn is another really good resource as well. You can hop on LinkedIn and search VC and literally just go to the laundry list. For the minority entrepreneurs on this call, you can literally hop on Google and just Google venture capitalists investing in Black founders. You'll find laundry list of VCs or individuals or organizations who are investing in Black and Latino founders. So there's all kind of resources out there. There's all kind of organizations. As long as you got some hustle and you get aggressive, not aggressive with your pitching or your business, but aggressive with contacting people, making those calls, making those connections, attending those events, you'll find yourself very quickly building up your investor network. So I just wanted to give you guys that. And before we go into Q&A, Pierre, what is next for Fleeting?
Oh man, what's next for Fleeting? Maybe this is probably going to be off the record. We do have a great opportunity that we're really getting ready to launch in the next couple of days. We are very excited about it. Is actually, allowing entrepreneurs to make passive income in trucking without being a driver. So individuals like you guys, you can really get into trucking now and really start making passive income. And we're talking about some serious passive income. But once again, I don't have the liberty to really share too much of that, because I don't know if you're going to share this online.
We
and
are.
don't
So
want
you
to,
have to
yeah,
show
so
anything you don't want to share.
definitely. But I'll let you know when it's launched to share with your community as well, because I think this is something that definitely everyone should participate in, especially everyone that's on this line as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So Pierre, thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing your experience. And we have a couple questions. So let me just roll through this list and then I'll just open it up to everybody. So Mike, thanks. Thank you for your question. Mike wanted to know, how does the app work? Who are some of your top competitors and what sets your tech apart from the others? Sounds like you have a technologist who's interested.
Absolutely. Great question. So the app works. So right now we're currently live in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and now launching in Atlanta. So if you're a driver, you download the app first, but before you have access to the app, you have to kind of go through a vetting process, just like pretty much a DOT standard application where we check your previous employer, we check your MVR, your driving behavior, we check your previous employer, and you also go for a pre-alcohol and drug screen prior to you having access. So once you go through that entire vetting process, and you're good to go, then you have access to the app. So we have right now about 28 customers, and you'll see the 28 customers that have the demand for jobs, and the drivers can create a schedule and they can start accepting work, that fit their schedules. So if you're not in those areas where we're live and, you don't complete an application process, you would not have access to the app. Competitors right now, we have what you would call, what's the name of that company again? Relay on Demand. We have, there's two more, really. Huh?
Uber, is Uber Truck a competitor or
I
no?
wouldn't say Uber Trucking is a competitor to us, because Uber is much more like a broker. Like, it's just a digital broker. So for us is, once again, we connecting the drivers to the trucking companies. And also another company that I would say that's a very close competitor to us is True North, where they're actually empowering owner operators and giving them the back office tools that they need to be successful. We're also working on that feature as well and bringing more owner operators into the platform. So that's one of the closest competitors that we have. What differentiates us from the competitors, I think for me, number one is that, being a driver and truly understand the importance of understanding unit economics, to understand what really worked for drivers and what really worked for trucking companies. We're not just building a product just by assuming what we think drivers want or what we think trucking companies want. We're really taking our time to truly understand the driver's journey, understand the shipper's issues, understand the motor carrier's problem. And that's how we build. And I think that's what gives us the edge of being able to build the best tool. Because once again, we're not building anything based on our own understanding. We actually taking time to truly understand the people that we serve in every day.
Amazing answer. I feel like you're like pitching a VC right now.
All right.
Mike says amazing, so Mike approves.
Thank you, Mike.
Another question from Roger Elliott. What advice was shared with you that you wish you followed sooner?
What was that? That hire slow and fire fast. That's definitely, and as much as I don't agree with it to some extent, but I also see there was times where, I should have made the decision a lot sooner and drag my feet and see where that can actually be a big potential error down the line. So I think that's one takeaway for me, like, the importance of hiring slow and firing fast. For me, sometimes I was eager to really hire and trying to get things done. But, what I've learned is, when you hiring, also make sure you think about firing as well. Because remember, those people that have families and never trying to rush and just trying to make a hire. So I think that was one of the great valuable lessons that I've learned early that I'm actually still applying now.
Okay, great question and great answer. Tasi, I hope I'm saying your name right. Tasi asked, how does Fleeting make money and what is the business model?
Great question. So Fleeting make money in several ways, right? And so one way we make money is, so certain accounts, how we work with them is we can charge an hourly fee. So for example, we could charge, let's say for example, about $60 per hour. We pay the drivers about $35 per hour, and Fleeting keeps the difference as a net revenue. Also, another way that we work is a booking fee, right? Some companies, we can say, hey, look, if you request a driver within 24 hours, the booking fee is $100. Or if you request a driver within 48 hours to 72 hours, the booking fee can become $50. So that's a booking fee model. And we also have another model where how we work is, if the trucking company wants to just simply acquire the driver from us and not have that driver under our payroll, we charge a company about $5K to actually acquire a driver from us. So there's different ways for you to make money. And also another part is by being able to bring owner operators on and bring entrepreneurs in trucking, we also have a monthly subscription fee of $350 that we charge. So Fleeting has different ways of making money into this process.
Nice, nice. Great question and great answer. Dame asked, he wanted to know about getting into the business passively for 2021. Dame,
Yeah.
maybe if you want to take yourself off mute, maybe you could ask your question. If you wanted to ask maybe something more specifically.
Yeah, sure. Pierre, thank you. Appreciate you jumping on with us. Stories is amazing.
Thank you.
My background, I'm a software engineer. So I originally wanted to create some sort of app where truckers and the customers, you can basically keep a track. So, update your delivery status without having to kind of reach out to the end user or whatever. But then I kind of did away with that, and I decided early in the year that Q3, Q4, I wanted to jump in passively, kind of like how you just mentioned, and eventually start maybe with a truck and then eventually get a fleet. But again, in the passive kind of capacity. So I guess what would be the first steps that you recommend me taking to do so?
Great question, man. Definitely appreciate it. I love when people actually see opportunities in trucking and really to invest in it passively, because that is a huge thing right now that's about to happen. I think we're really looking forward to turning the game on its head. There's a huge opportunity in trucking, and too often we don't tap into those opportunities. Usually they're reserved for larger corporations, but Fleeting, we want to make it a lot easier for individuals like yourself to be able to own an asset and make the passive income. So one thing I would say, I don't think I've said that in here before, is I myself is actually working on putting a course together of really teaching individuals how to really get into trucking, how they can make, $5 million of passive income, just like I did it. And I think that would be the very first step to kind of have that level of education and understand what it is. But also our company help you with that process as well. So I think in the next 30 days, we'll be able to really start bringing in more entrepreneurs like yourself to where we can help you, locate the asset. We help you find the drivers. We help you find the loads as well to keep that truck moving. So that's something that our company is looking to relaunch in the next, 30 days, maybe towards the end of the year. And since you're ready to do it for 2021, I would definitely say stay tuned, man. And you should definitely take part of that course to kind of get that, educational muscle in trucking, because once again, yes, it's passively, but it's like pretty much running your own operation as well. And you definitely could make a lot of money. And this is not selling nobody no dream as me being a driver and seeing other entrepreneurs that have done it as well. So this could be a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs to really make money in trucking. So I think having that level of education, not to say, hey, look, you have to know everything in trucking from point A to Z, but I think just have some visuals and some basic knowledge of it will help you also understand your unit economics and know what to expect, and nobody will take over on you as you passively run your, passive income in trucking.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you as well.
Yeah. Great question and answer. You guys are on fire today. Another question is from Tassi. This is a good question. What stops a driver from going directly to the trucking company after their first job?
Great question. So typically trucking companies doesn't give drivers flexibility, right? When you work for a trucking company, like I said, your schedule is Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, and you're working 14 hours per day. Now, granted, you call out 2 times, or you want a day off, or you want to go do this, companies give you help. You call out too often, eventually you get terminated. So the reason why most drivers, after they get the first job from that company, they're not so eager of going to work directly for that company, is because with Fleeting, that they can work 2 weeks straight and then say, hey, look, we need 2 weeks off. They don't have to explain to us why they need 2 weeks off. They can take 2 weeks off to take care, spend time with their family, go on vacation. And when they come back, they're ready to go back to work, then they could go back to work. But traditionally, they can't do that at a trucking company. So a lot of drivers, that's one of the main reason why they don't leave us after they get the first job at the company, because they know once they go with that company, they become tied to the hip to that company. And drivers are really coming on because we provide a level of flexibility.
That makes a lot of sense. When you're value driven, you can retain your people.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's just business 101.
I got a question.
Yes, jump in.
So Pierre, you transport different products, right? From one city to another.
Not that we transport products. What we do is we work with trucking companies that transport product from cities to different cities. So we just provide the drivers to those companies that transport the products.
Oh, okay. Because I know you said you had several trucks also.
Several companies. We have several trucking companies, but also that part that you're talking about is, which is version 2 of fleeting, where we will have the trucks running product for our existing shippers that's in our network. So right now, that's not something that is live yet. That's what's going to be live in the next 30 days. But what we do now is we send drivers directly to trucking companies and creating their own schedule, where the trucking companies don't have to kind of spend money on recruiting and looking for drivers on their own. They can tap into our platform and request drivers whenever their existing drivers call out, or one of their drivers quit, or they have additional assets just sitting down underutilized.
So you train your drivers?
Our drivers come to us trained. We do request our drivers to have a minimum of 2 years, but that's definitely Q2 of 2021, we'll definitely be launching a free trucking school where we'll be training truckers, more people to get into trucking.
Okay, one more quick question. Now,
Sure.
relative to when you got started, okay, this is aside from when you started making money.
Okay.
When you began to put your team together, what was your pitch to your team before you started making money for them to work with you? Like, how did you, what did you tell them before you started making money? What was that pitch? What did that sound like to them?
Yeah, that pitch was number one, the experience that I've had in trucking. Number one is, how many years I've drove as a driver myself, the pain point that I've experienced myself as a driver, and also being able to run my own operation and also understand the cash opportunity, right? The money that we can make in trucking. I was always, for me, I always had my numbers to back up everything that I've said. So I was always showing them like, hey, look, I've done this before and I've done it by myself without a team. So imagine if I have a team, if I could do $5 million by myself in 3-4 years, and imagine if I have a team that has some capital, absolutely I can build a $100 million company. So I think that was one of the tools that I was using to actually bring more people into my orbit.
So they started working with you for no money up front, just as a volunteer basis is what you're saying?
Yes, a lot of them worked for me when they was getting no money at all. It was just sweat equity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to add on to her question, just so there's clarity, were your first early employees, did they have an equity deal with you, or was it really just straight, they're just going to come in and help out and whatever happens?
No, every employee that came in, definitely I made sure that I allocated, make sure that they had a percentage of the company, because once again, I didn't have no capital to pay them. And that's another thing too. How do you incentivize somebody? How do you, make somebody interested enough to join your company? If you don't have the capital to pay them a salary, the least you can do is at least offer some kind of ownership in the company, make the person feel like they're in it with you. So yeah, I did that early on with our employees that have ownership in the company as well.
Okay, now I have another question on that topic. When you did that, right, I find that it's an interesting place to be, right, when you're giving away equity. Do you take the route of giving away like very little equity, like 1%, and then maybe like letting someone earn it over time, or do you give out like 5%, 20%? Because I find that sometimes when the startups are giving out these big chunks to their early founders, the founders end up getting diluted. And I can imagine that becomes like a little nasty, right? Like you're working with this company, they have 20%, then you get this huge round, now they have 7%, now they're like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
is that something you have to deal with, or?
Well, yeah, definitely. I had to learn a lot with that. I made a lot of mistakes. Like, a ton of mistakes when it comes to like really properly managing that cap table, understanding, what I was giving to people. And, but thank God the cliff is something that really helped, because I could offer somebody 20% of the company, but if I put it on a 4-year cliff, where, saying, hey, look, you're not going to get those shares unless you execute on X, Y, and Z. Then if the person is not performing, then you can actually, you can actually terminate that person, and they don't have to actually have those shares in a company. But I learned those mistakes very early on. I did them myself, and understanding by giving away too much in a company. But by the grace of God, I don't know, I was lucky to was able to really be able to clean up everything in the company and still have a really huge ownership in the company. Right now, still about almost 80% of ownership in the company. And we've raised, like I said, $1.8 million, and we do have a team of 10. So definitely it was pretty great at managing it by learning a lot, by making those mistakes of giving too early, not understanding how to negotiate, not understanding the powers that I've had, not understanding the values that I bring to the table. And, another thing is, as founders, we have to make sure early on we get an attorney that really understands those things that could help us through that. Because like you said, that could be very messy. But to answer your question again about the, sometimes if you own 20% of the company and you end up getting diluted to 7%, that's not necessarily bad. You understand? Because if you're getting diluted, but the company is growing in valuation, that's actually a good thing. So let's say if you own the 20%, but you own the 20%, the company was worth $10 million, right? And let's just say you do a large round where if they take that much, I mean, if they leave you with 7%, it's a 13% round, you're losing on the company. But remember, you had the 20% at a $10 million valuation. But now that you have the 7%, you probably have the 7% at a $50 million valuation. So although you might lose the amount of equity that you own, but the value of the company is a lot higher. So it's just kind of like it evens out. So a lot of times, founders kind of get themselves caught up in, mine, I want to own everything myself. But it's just the same way you have to look at it. Like, what do you rather own? Do you rather own 100% of $1 million company, or do you rather own 10% of a $100 million company? So it's just kind of like, that way you have to think about it, where when you get diluted, at least the valuation of the company goes up, and you don't necessarily get that hurt unless you really have minimal around shares that you can get diluted too fast.
Okay, yeah, that's a good answer. And I think that's also something that people don't think about, that, it's when you're in it, you start making all the mistakes, and then it's just like, but it seems like you navigated that well.
Right.
Abraham has a good question. If you didn't have the business background and other profitable, if you didn't have the business background and other profitable businesses, how would you convince investors in your pitch?
So if you didn't have the business background and other profitable business, how would you convince investors in your pitch? Well, I mean, whatever business that I'll be in, let's say, okay, if it wasn't in trucking, whatever it is that I would get in, number one, I would truly make sure that I'm selling a solution that people actually want, that people actually need. Like they say, like if they like you, they'll listen. If they love you, they'll buy, right? So for me, is how do I get people to love what I'm selling? How do I get people to fall in love with that product? So for me, I think whatever field that I would decide to go in, I would definitely fall in love with it, and I would make sure that my sellers or the investors are in love with it as well. And I think that was the best way for me. I would be able to raise venture capital on any business right now. Like right now, for example, I'm not a surgeon, right? I don't know how to do surgery, but if I want to go into the medical field where I want to start pitching investors, I would make sure that I fall in love with something in the medical field that I could understand, like the back of my hand, that I can be confident of what I'm selling. And once I have that confidence, then I'll be able to really kind of, tell a story to investors, because once again, that book did it for me, understanding the idea of volume and profit margin. So once again, it's just the same, like, do you want to build $1 million company, or do you want to build $1 billion company or $100 billion company? It's all about the volume. So I think for me is understanding that alone will give me will put me in a better position to always be able to raise with VCs, because once again, I know what they're looking for. VCs are looking for companies that can really have 10x, 20x, 100x return. So they're looking for unicorns. They're looking for companies that will be, worth at least $1 billion. So I will always keep my brain spinning of what is the next best idea that I know 1 million users are going to use, and they're going to pay me at least, let's just say, $30 a month for it. And that's the way I would think about building any business.
I like that.
Hope I answered that question well.
I think that was a great answer. Abraham says thank you. I think he agrees as well. Galaxy Note 8. I don't know your name because you have your Galaxy Note 8 up here, but Galaxy Note 8 asks, what is the relative startup cost? If you want to unmute yourself, you can, and maybe you could just ask your question specifically. I don't know if you're talking about starting up an app, if you're talking about getting a truck.
Your life. That's the course. Your life.
Hey, what's up, Jeff? This is Jamel.
Oh, hey, what's going on, Jamel?
How you doing? How you doing, Pierre? So the question I'm asking is as far as being an owner operator, because I don't like driving trucks anymore. I don't like the truck driving thing. I just want to own trucks and have drivers and, have them make a decent wage and make a decent wage too. So what are some of the beginner startup costs?
Biggest startup costs you're talking about in trucking. So yeah, definitely in starting trucking, I would say that the minimum anybody should have before they get into trucking, I would say around 15K. And the reason for that is because, like I said, I always advise people on when they're purchasing a truck, make sure they get a pre-owned truck, a truck that comes from a previous lease. That could be around the range of $50,000 to $65,000. And let's just say down payment for a truck could range between 10 to sometimes up to 30% down payment based on the person's credit. So I would say you just kind of look at, let's just say, even if you have to put $10,000 down as a down payment for a truck, and by the time you add insurance and, all the registration, that's probably going to cost another $3,000. and you have another 2 grand left to actually get some fuel and get going. So I would say 15 grand is a good number to have as far as startup costs in trucking. And the goal is, with that 15 grand, my goal for anyone that get into trucking to do that is for you to make that 15 grand. How do you make that money back in 2 months or 3 months top? So you recoup your investment, so now everything become profitable. So yeah, 15 grand is a number that I would say that you should kind of look at to really get you going safely in trucking.
I thank you. I appreciate it, because I've asked several other people in the business this question, and I'm just trying to compare answers, because, I don't want to jump into it blindly. And it's something I've been doing research for about a year. You know what I mean? So before I was ready to jump in, I just wanted to, just get as much information as I could, because, trucking can be expensive. Trucks break down. You got to have a reliable mechanic, and you know what I mean? And not also just on that aspect of it. Also, I wanted to get into the dispatch, and then actually, doing deals with the broker, because that's where that's where the profit is at, and that's where I can actually help other people and other truckers that I know be more profitable. Because I see that a lot of truckers have that issue with getting the right kind of loads or the profitable loads. And
Absolutely.
How hard is it, or how do I get into that aspect of the business as far as dispatching and making the getting the dispatching the loads?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no right or wrong way to get into trucking. Like I said, it don't have to just be a driver. You could be a dispatcher, and even as much as I talk about brokers, you could be a broker. You could be, a 3PL. There's so many ways that you can be in trucking, but learning those things is, like you said, is very important, since you yourself been a driver, so you know how to negotiate and provide better resources to other truckers. So I definitely think you should definitely stay tuned and make sure you connect with me on Instagram, Pierre Laguerre _ Laguerre 5. Like I said, I'm putting this course together that I should be putting out in the next 30 to 45 days the latest. And I think that course will be able to teach drivers exactly what they need to do in order to really become entrepreneurs in trucking. If there is be a better dispatcher, being able to negotiate better loads, or building their own fleet of trucks, or even if it's an authority that they need to run under as a 3PL, our company provide that as well. So those are the things that we're doing to actually educate truckers to be more profitable and improve their bottom line and being able to run a more efficient business in trucking. So I definitely think you should be able to join our network, man, and definitely take that course. I think you'll definitely be able to learn a lot from it and be able to build a lot of successful business, especially on the dispatch end.
Okay, no problem. And when is that course expected to be out?
I'll say 45 days max. So don't hold me to it. I'm trying to do it in the next 30 days, but let's push for the 45 days max. But follow me on Instagram. I drop a lot of I put a lot of notes, a lot of messages on what drivers need to look out for, what it is that we need to do in order to be successful. But I love the approach that you're taking yourself as a driver of saying, hey, look, how can you be part of something to where you can go back and add value to those drivers, because that is a service that truckers desperately need. So you being a driver yourself, you'll be able to really build a nice network and be able to build a strong business.
I got one more question. Now,
sure.
How will this work when you're having a full-time job, especially starting off? Because you don't want to leave your job before you get things rolling, because you still got to have income coming in so you can fund these things. So what is the challenge with having a full-time job and trying to start this trucking business?
Yes, you're absolutely right. The challenge that you mentioned is very real. So this is why Fleeting, again, we have another part of our business called Fleet Connect that help you with that entire process. We connect you with the lending companies. We find you the truck. We keep the drivers in your truck. You can run under our authority and give you a full peace of mind. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to quit your job, because we take care of everything for you, where you don't even have to feel like you're alone in the process. We connect you with our partners that can actually make the process a lot easier for you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Nice talking to you. Definitely keep connected.
Definitely. It's Pierre _ Laguerre 5 on Instagram.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, can you put that in the chat also, please, so we can contact you? Also, my question is, and I have a hard stop. I do apologize very shortly, but I am a pastor and I have service on tonight. But what kind of promotions and marketing do you do, Pierre? Because I am a host and producer on one of the largest gospel stations here in New York, WLIB. So I often do advertising for businesses. So we have about 770,000 listeners, WLIB radio. Hezekiah Walker, Reverend Sharpton is on that radio station as well. Do you do any promotions and marketing for what you do?
Yes, we do right now. The platform that we use for promotion is not really any paid ads. So we pretty keep everything organic, is, you know, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I think early next year, we probably really looking to be a little bit more aggressive on the marketing end. But definitely, if you have anything that you want to share with us, that if this is a tool that we can use for some marketing as well, I'll be more than happy to take a look at them.
Okay, so you can be reached on your
I'll put
Instagram?
my, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Same name, Pierre Laguerre.
Okay, thank you.
I even want to say, when we send after the event, we normally send out a follow-up email with the speakers' email, LinkedIn handle, Instagram handle. So everybody, don't worry, you will get Pierre's contact info to follow up with him individually. We have a hard stop in another 8 minutes. I know, Pierre, you have another speaking engagement to get to. Does anyone have any final questions or even final comments that they want to make? Even just telling Pierre thank you for coming out.
Wonderful. Oh, one more question. What was the name of that book that you said that you read? The CEO book. Something.
Or what the CEO wants you to know.
What the CEO wants you to know.
Yeah, hold on one second. I think I have it right here. There you go, by Ram Shrine. Yep. It's right here.
Oh. Is that your book or who's that by?
No. I think the author's name is right here on the bottom.
I can't see that. That's too
Yeah,
far.
we can't see. Can you read it to us?
I'll put it in there. I'll put it in the group chat for y'all.
Thank you.
My Ram, yep.
Once again, thanks for the information. It was very helpful and informative. Appreciate it.
Thank
Jeff,
you,
good
Pierre.
looking.
Very
Thank
helpful.
you for having me, guys. Thank you for taking the time to hear me butt my gums. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Israel.
No, it's male. It's male.
Thank you, Hassan.
That's close enough.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Pierre, once again, you know, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. You're really passionate about the community. You've done amazing work, and the Incubator as an institution, you know, we're looking forward to supporting you in any way that we can and providing you more speaking opportunities and a platform to get out your message, get out, you know, the opportunities you want to bring to the community. So I'm just so grateful that you really took the time out to come and speak to, you know, to our people.
No, I'm really appreciate the opportunity to even, you know, be part of your network and be able to speak to the people. Like I said, I understand there's a lot of entrepreneurs here. There's going to be a lot of pitfalls, like, you know, a lot of mistakes. And, you know, if there's anything that you guys can learn from my journey to make sure that you can avoid those mistakes, please do so. Like I said, it's a tough journey out there, but we all have a moral duty. We all have a moral obligation to truly be the captain of our own ship and be the master of our destiny. So anyhow I can help, anyhow I can be a support, please feel free to reach out. And once again, thank you everyone for spending the time with me this evening. I really look forward to being part of this network and being able to support anyhow I can.
And I want to say one more thing, Pierre, because like you said, it was God that brought you through. How is your son doing, by the way?
He is doing amazing. My son is my rock now. And I think, you know, that son, as much as I was bitter about, you know, asking questioning God to say, why did you give me a son that's born with Down syndrome with special need? But I think that son was there to really teach me about patience, to really teach me about how God can really take you high and bring you low and bring you right back up. So I'm a firm believer in that. And I think this was part of his journey. He wanted me to go through that. He wanted to bust my head open to sit me down to truly understand what is it that he's doing in my life. So I'm very grateful for it. And my son is doing amazing. And he's my rock, man. So I'm blessed.
And that's the one that was in the hospital when you were in the hospital, right?
Yes, Juju. Yes, the youngest one.
So having said that, you know, it was absolutely God that brought you through. And those of you who don't have a church home, I have an international ministry called the Empire of Jesus Christ World Evangelism. And I have service worldwide in Ghana, Africa, America, on Facebook Live. I'm getting ready to go there now. So those of you, including you, Pierre, that need to reconnect with God, not religion, but you need to reconnect with God because everybody sees what's going on. You can join me in my live services every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, and every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. And I'm sure Jeffrey will give everyone that information.
Yeah, please share that with me as well. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think we're right about time. So yeah, just thank you everybody for coming out. Maybe just some closing remarks. The CSI Tech Incubator, we actually have our applications open for our upcoming cohort for this fall/winter. So if you're an early stage tech founder with a product in market and you're looking for some resources for your business, feel free to follow up, csitechincubator.com to get more information. But we will be following up with an email to give a little more information about the incubator program. You will have Pierre's contact info as well as maybe his business website if you guys want to check that out. And yeah, feel free to connect with me, connect with Pierre, and we are here to help build up build up the entrepreneurs in our community. So thank you everybody for coming out, and have a good night.
Thank you for having me, guys. Have a good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Bye.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Good night, everyone.
So.